All right, where I left off last time, I was just doing the exclamation mark, and I was having trouble with it because I treated the circle separately than the top of it, but it's all in the same layer and generated in the same group. You see how it's all actually on one path connected there because it came from a type tool that was outlined. Even though it's at 50%, it thinks it's at 100%, and there's no way for me to get it back, even by using the dropper and clicking on things that are fully opaque, because it thinks it's fully opaque. So what did I have to do? I copied it, I pasted it into a new file, and by doing that, I was then able to use the dropper and make it match. So now what do? Well, I select it from the new file, copy it, and I'm going to do this in a new layer just so I can get rid of the rest. Paste it in, move it in, and delete the one that has the transparency. So I'm kind of glad that happened because I mentioned that can be technical kind of glitchy difficulties with using transparency, and you have to be creative about how you overcome it. All right, now I have the exclamation mark separate from the text just so I can really play with its angle and its placement. And then when I turn off the sketch, does this read clearly and look fun and comic booky? It does. I think I'd want to tilt it all a little bit to the left still. And it's my own kind of version, not quite as funky as this. And does it work in black and white? And I think for the most part it does. I'm going to play a little bit with outlines now, because each of these is an individual path. I'm going to go ahead and move this into my layer. So now it's all part of the same layer. So now what I can do is treat all of it and give it an outline. What I don't need anymore, well, I'll leave the angry in there, but I definitely don't need any of these. So I'm going to delete these individual letter forms. All right. Now with the angry, what I might do for that, again, I focused on the most important ones first. What I might do is simply lasso them to select them. Make sure I get every anchor point there. Right. Then hit Command X, which will delete them, make a new layer, and then paste them in place, but it will copy them to the artboard. So now I can use large selection tool, shrink this down, kind of put it in place. Okay, now you do have certain options. So if you right click and you transform, you can do what's called shear, which is like distorting. And I can set a little bit of an angle to it and preview it as I go. And this works really well with type. But it's such an odd interface. But it basically makes everything italicized. So how might that work? Well, you can just set a little bit less boring angle that way. Let's see, I think I want it a little bit more open like that. But it's not the same as setting it on a path, right? But what's nice is that I can take the small selection tool, select each one, and kind of scale them down. I don't necessarily need to change each anchor point in order to get this to work for me. When I need to lengthen them, I can lengthen them. I'm using my sketch to determine my leading in between the letters. But I'm using kind of the uniformity of the font and the typeface to help bring it all together in a way that isn't too jarring. That way I can make the A a little bit wider, be a bit of a focal point. Without sacrificing too much. And the only thing I might do is play with the individual anchor points on this part of the in, just to help account for that big gap that the A leaves. All right, let's see how that looks. Yeah, so that's definitely very readable. I don't need to get too fussy with the G. I think that reads okay. It's not a solution I would have come up with on my own, so that's why it's nice to reference typefaces sometimes. Okay, now I'm still just trying to figure out the black and white solution, so save my work as I go. Now I'm just going to use the pen tool to create this shape. I want it nice and flowy at the top, maybe even as one complete curve if I can do it. There we go. Didn't quite take that far enough. Okay. I'm going to swap it just to a stroke, just so I can outline it for the time being. And continue to build with it. Build in a curve. Build in a curve. Build in a curve. That little hook. Then click back so it's not the same curve anymore. Build in another curve. Click back so it's not the same curve anymore. See how it gives me the adjust anchor point tool? That allows me to change direction. Then build in this curve. And that one. And I'll have to adjust those anchors. And that one, click back. Big curve. Like so. Click back. Straight, straight, straight to close. All right. So that's drawing with the pen tool. Don't try to get it perfect each time, then you modify. So I use the small selection tool to work on this hook and this curve. When things get tight in Illustrator like this, you have to do a lot of little modifications. I kind of like that, the evenness of that on both sides. Let's see. This I want to smooth out. I can use the smooth tool if I like. Really soften out that curve. That works. As a stroke, you see it doesn't give me the sharp points I want, but when I turn it back into a path, it will. So let's do that. Swap it. And now let's play with these points. Bring that down a bit and then open up the curve. It's like pinstriping on a hot rod. I like it a little thinner. I want to bring this anchor in a bit. And we're not getting paid a lot of money for perfecting this. So we're just getting exposed to it, trying our best. But I do like how it kind of opens the gap up more this way. All right, let's try that without the... Right, nice. Yeah, I'll go for that. So let's save it. So now, last thing, to get my black and white type solution, which was my goal for today, how do I show this? NLC Art Club and Digital Art, which is more letters than anything else so far. How do I get that in there? And am I happy with... Yeah, I was wondering if I wanted another linear element. Let me just try something really quick. Do it on a new layer. So with the pen tool, what if I just do a curve here to here? Click back, angle back, curve back. Click back. Actually, maybe the curve was a good idea there. Close. Just with the idea of pinstriping a little bit, I was wondering if I closed, used some of this negative space and filled it in, what effect that might have. Use the smooth tool, bring this up a little bit, bring that down, this up a little bit, that's better. Smooth over this. A little more watery. And then, yeah, what I was excited about was maybe dipping within this. So just showing you all the different pen tool features. So I want to dip in where the in is and kind of cut into it. So I add an anchor point there, I add an anchor point at the tip, and I add an anchor point here. And then with each of those anchor points, there's one. I take their curves down, their handles down, and then I'm able to hover over the center one, take its curves away, and get that kind of dent that I was looking for. Give it a little tension. Do I like that? Do I think it adds? Almost there. I think it heightens the reading of the type a little bit in a way that I like. So even without white outlines, it looks more dynamic. Now what I can do is use the large selection tool and play with this